343 actually made this. I don't know. Anyway, no big deal. I'll launch the game on my own and then invite him after the fact. Yeah, for sure. Can't invite once the game has been started. You either start together in the lobby or you start solo. Not all bad, at least the frame rate is good, right? Yeah, no. The game runs very poorly even on a very optimistic 1080p, 280 super 32 gigs of RAM, and a 990K. Yep, there you go. Let's see here, 900K. This is the second game that's come out recently that I have been genuinely excited to try out based on what the developers have done before, but I have been burned twice in less than a week between this and Jedi Survivor. I sure do love being a gamer in 2023 that gets fully baked games on release with lots of polish and no bugs.
Ability isn't ready yet.
Right?
Can't do that yet.
That is a minus. Yeah, guys, it's not a minus 70, it's a minus 140. Do yourself a favor and wait on them to see what reviews say a few months from now. Next Gen Gaming Starter Pack. Same or even worse graphics fidelity than old gen games. Abysmal optimization requires an RTX 4090 minimum and still can't hit 60 FPS. A $70 to $90 price tag for a mid and unfinished game. Apology statement after releasing the games in a broken state. After months of patching, nothing improves. And even whenever it does, no one cares. You know why? It's because after the game comes out, people have already made up their mind that it's a bad game. Like, a bad game is bad forever. That's it. Like, you'll have, like, there are exceptions like No Man's Sky. I think the world's gotten better since release 2, but for the most part, if a game releases and it's bad, it's bad.
Not enough rage.
That's it. People are always going to think that stuff, and it's sad, but there it is. Let's see here. Product review for free. Oh wow, this guy played it for 12 hours. That is a lot. I played this game before day one patch was up. I don't know if there even was a day one patch. The game ran pretty alright. It hits generally once in a while on high and medium, so I knew to go down below. The game itself is very uninspired amalgamation of very different co-op shooters that manages to not get any of them right. It has no idea who its target audience is. That being said, the exploration is bland, the shooting is blander, and I see the more variety in at the Baskin Robbins than I do in the enemy types. I mean, to be fair, they've got some different kinds of ice cream, so it's not really that bad. My story and characters exist as much as my self-worth does. TLDR, it's a game with a new concept that ends up disappointing. While I don't recommend it, I won't talk you out of it. CPU fall. Another strong contender for worst PC port of the year. How did Arkham regress from Dishonored to this? Product refunded.
Not ready yet.
Jesus.
I can't do that yet.
Oh, this guy's positive. Okay. Day one update fixes a lot of the complaints people have. Kinda sucks that the reviewers got buggy copies. I don't know, the game's pretty fun and I'm still struggling. It feels a little lonely in certain areas. Gunplay isn't bad. I really like my legendary shotgun. Don't listen to reviews. Play it for yourself and you decide. So that must be the developer. And so yeah, there's some people that are positive about it. Yeah, definitely. The world looks so fucking dead. I don't even know, like, I love getting up late and then realizing that I don't even have to play a game because everybody's already decided that it's bad. Do you need to purchase a game to have a bad opinion on it? This is my opinion on gaming and everything about gaming. I judge a book by its cover. Whenever I watched Vampire Survivors for 30 seconds, it looked like a good game. Whenever I watched, Classic World of Warcraft for 30 seconds, it looked like a good game. Whenever I watched Remnant for 30 seconds, it looked like a good game. You say don't judge a book by its cover? I say make a better fucking cover. That's what I think. Arcane is in Austin, by the way. Well, what are they doing? Going down and getting drunk at 6th Street? Make the game better. Yeah, that's what I think. If I see a game and the game is shit, it's a shit.
I can't do that.
It's that simple. Like, we usually play a bad game for content. Yeah, but when there's a Spectre and there's like a new WoW patch, like if there was nothing else happening,
isn't ready yet.
I love how he says, I can do this forever.
Not ready
I
yet.
think that's the best part. Yeah.
Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do it yet. The ability isn't ready yet.
Wow. This looks like a great game, guys.
Not ready yet.
Oh, there you
The
go.
ability isn't ready yet.
This is the in-game music, right?
Not enough rage. Need more rage. Not enough rage. Need more rage. I can't do that yet. Not enough rage.
Wow.
Need more rage.
435, now it has over 2,000, and this was only 4 hours ago.
Need more rage.
Beta test games have beta test price tags. Here's the thing. I think that there is no, like, this is a buyer beware situation. If somebody puts something up for $70, you should absolutely do due diligence to look up and see how this game plays and make a decision for yourself. Is it worth it? Should I play this game or not? Yeah, it is a $70 game. And the thing is, like, everybody has enough resources. Like, this is my advice for playing video games. Buy a game on the second day. And if on the second day of the game, people
Not
are
enough
being
rage.
patient about it,
Need
what about not malicious
rage.
intent?
Not enough rage.
I think that it's
Need
about
more
being
rage.
able to avoid it. So, for example, I don't think these
ready
people
yet.
had malicious intent. I just think they didn't have a game. And also, I'm not siding with them. I think you should be able to refund the game. Like, you should absolutely be able to refund the game. 100%. I understand that you think that you're being clever. And by the way, I know that some people will try and do this. Anytime somebody tries to pull a gotcha on this, I will respond to your gotcha, but it will cost you your account.
That
So
ability
just keep that in mind. Yeah, you do get permabanned for trying a gotcha like that. Just because, again, it's a deliberate misunderstanding. But yes, I think that you should be able to refund, because you're right. I don't think somebody who makes a game that is unfinished, buggy, and garbage, and like, we're not talking about like the game doesn't play well. We're talking about the game doesn't. It just straight up doesn't work. I absolutely think people should be able to find refunds on it. And Steam has already created that.
not ready yet.
The game's so unfair, refunds not like to do. Yeah, exactly. And Steam will refund if you play more than 2
Not enough
hours. I
rage.
think that for certain games, Steam should make the refund window.
Not
I
enough
do.
rage.
Because especially, like, you might not encounter these things within like the first 2 hours of the game. And also, you might have the game on, but you might not be actually playing it for 2 hours. You might only be playing it for like 30 minutes. But yeah, it should be a little bit longer than 2 hours. Especially for situations like this. 5 hours, something like that, yeah. They refund broken games anyway after you pass 2 hours. Well, I really hope that they do. Because, yeah, I totally agree. This was maliciously released. I mean, not like that. No. Let me go back. I was just thinking about in the context of the conversation we just had. This was released, and there is no way that they didn't know about these bugs. There's no way. Like, if you release a game that's not very good, and people don't like it and they want to refund it, that's totally different. But whenever you release something that is actually bad, and it's not working, then it's something completely different. Yeah, bugs are fun. It depends on the bug. Arkham Knight's released in a horrible state. Developers allow of your playtime and 50 hours and still refund it. So it's fucking malicious then, isn't it? I think that, again, it's about being honest. Is it somebody who's being malicious, or is it somebody who's incompetent? I think that at a certain point, there is, and also, like, how much do you get to, like, functionally, what is the difference whenever it affects somebody in a negative way? Because it doesn't really matter if somebody is malicious or incompetent. It doesn't. And that's why I didn't want to talk about, like, which word it was, because I think it doesn't really make a difference. Because fundamentally, what's happening here is somebody is getting a game that they paid money for, and the game straight up. So, and they're paying for something that is dysfunctional. Of course that shouldn't be okay. Yeah, there's no accountability for it. And if people are able to do refunds, then you have accountability for it. And the reason why developers, here's the thing, is that the reason why developers do this is because not enough people do it. Either because of the rules, the purchasing incentives have, or for whatever other reason they don't refund. If everybody just refunded, they wouldn't release them this way. It's without refunds again. Yeah, exactly. If you order your food from a restaurant and it comes out raw and you send it back, you don't have to pay for it. Why should it be it should not. If they are usually bought, they will 10 regardless. I don't think I just bought. I know what you're saying. Release risk.
Ability isn't ready yet.
Just in general, like, I don't really like the idea that that a game developer can come out and release a game that's broken or buggy or bad, like Jedi Survivor or like Redfall, because there's no way that like Jedi Survivor or Redfall, nobody played this on PC and they didn't know this was a problem. And the reason why they keep doing it is because people can't refund easily. And if people were more easily able to refund, they would not do it because they wouldn't. So again, if you want to stop people from doing something, figure out what they're getting out of it and then take that away. That's how to make people stop doing something. There's a big reason why the game works though. They don't care about the game as long as it gives them content, so it's free advertising. Well, whether it's free advertising or not, the individual still makes a decision on whether they're going to purchase the game, and sometimes that decision is irreversible. Like somebody said, the Microsoft Store doesn't allow you to do refunds on digital content. That's it's a massive problem. You think Survivor's bad? How far are you? I think that the PC optimization is bad. I haven't played the game yet because I heard of that. I'm just saying that the PC optimization. And if the game was, if everybody was able to refund the game, they wouldn't have released it on PC in the same way.
Pretty nuts.
I hate it. I listened to it. I'm glad the boss just got a DUI.
The boss got a DUI?
Oh, come on, man.
What happened to him?
He was being a renegade. They got him.
Yeah.
How blacked out do you think he was?
He probably got done. He's like, I just got done doing a podcast with Barack Obama.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you're blacked out.
Yeah, right. No, seriously, he was in my living room.
Not ready.
Here we go, dude.
Whoa.
Woo.
Not enough rage. Need more rage.
I mean, I don't think it's the whole time, but like, that's generally the way I feel about it. Maybe you're older now for MMORPGs. I do not think it has anything to do with age.
I'm out of rage. Not ready yet.
I don't feel that way about. I mean, I do kind of feel that way about Lost Ark, but for most other games, I don't. Like, I don't feel that way about New World, for example. I don't feel that way about Final Fantasy. It's really just WoW.
Ability isn't ready yet.
And also, I think it's something that's happened with a lot of games. Like PoE has the same problem, where it's like it's like a goal of the developers to get your character killed. It's like kind of a weird way of
Need more
it's
rage.
like you're trying to like find ways to like fuck the player up. This in 5 games. This one's way older. Well, but like the new stuff is harder. Like the old stuff isn't hard. It's the new stuff that's hard. Let's see. Next. It's because all the devs in the are big D&D nerds. I'm just saying in general, that's like that's the vibe I get from it.
Need more rage. Ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage.
These new world dungeons are fun, nicely put together, challenging for sure on higher difficulty. Yeah, it's kind of overcomplicated the game to where so much of the end game mechanics aren't fun. They're fun, and that's really that's the reason why I don't play it.
More rage. Not enough rage.
I'm gonna probably go have dinner with my dad, so I have to go for a bit. I'll probably play more of this tomorrow. It depends. Like, I haven't really decided. Honestly, I kind of don't like playing classic WoW because there are so many like really annoying people constantly, and it makes it like not fun to deal with. Like the game, it's very distracting and annoying for me, so it makes me like not really want to play it at all. But yeah, I don't know. I might play more tomorrow. I haven't really decided.
My ability isn't ready yet. Not enough rage. Need more rage.
4 months ago, this video was released. Ever since then, every single day, people have asked me. I figured, you know what? Let's cozy up. Let's get
Not
comfy.
enough rage.
And let's take a look
Need
inside
more
the
rage.
box.
My ability isn't ready yet.
The following video contains subjects and footage that some viewers
Not
may
enough
find
rage.
disturbing. All information contained is made publicly available by the
More rage.
viewer
Not
discretion
enough
is
rage.
advised.
I can't do that.
Those are the good days, boys. 14-inch televisions. Yeah. I had one of
In a
those.
session? Sure, but the question is, does the international integration of internet game represent a danger? Maybe, but there's also no indication that anything can slow the explosive growth of the intoxicating game called World of Warcraft.
Yep. That's how you knew it was a good game. Fox News doing documentaries.
What the fuck was that shit?
And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do,
But you don't. Yep. I love the 90s fucking intro.
Oh, I game feels all day, every day.
Oh shit. My man, that guy's a gladiator.
Instead of 16 hours a day, Mother says his personality has changed and that he's become moody and violent.
Fuck
and his
yeah.
addiction is tearing the family apart.
Fuck yeah.
But our actions are gonna matter more than any of these.
That's
Than
right.
any of these.
They sure did matter, didn't they?
Alright, go, ready guys. Let's do this.
Damn, that was some good shit. Bro, what a fucking intro. Holy shit.
The power level where
Bro, I watched this on that monitor
and they get all the great
at Jeff's
experience.
house. Oh my god. Fuck yeah, dude. This is so good. Holy shit. There it is. The good times, the best times.
In the world of MMORPGs, you'll scarcely find anyone who hasn't heard of, if not played, the World of Warcraft. Released in 2004, it would quickly begin to make a name for itself, garnering worldwide praise for its innovation,
I remember this
accessibility,
fucking article,
and the
man.
closeness to the community by
Yep.
its developer, Blizzard Entertainment. Both celebrated and condemned for its addictiveness, in the span of a few short months, it would not only become the most popular of the MMORPG genre, but also set the standard for all of those that would follow in its footsteps. Many would try, and over the course of 15 years, few would gain even a fraction of the player base of the seemingly unstoppable giant. Today, though, a much different...
People forget how big WoW was. Like, WoW was like, it was the game. It was the game people were talking about. It was like Fortnite in 2018 for 3 years. Probably longer than that, like 5 or 6 years. It was massive. It was the fucking game.
Different picture is painted. What was initially considered inspirational in the world of game development now leaves behind a controversial history marred with what many describe as betrayal, deception, and squandered potential, leaving many asking the question, how? A snapshot of history of a world created within a world, a microcosm of mayhem. Virtual players forced to show each other their best and their worst. This is the story of Blizzard Entertainment and their iconic MMORPG, The World of Warcraft.
Need more rage. Not enough rage.
As I said, I really cannot emphasize enough how different the whole world was like back then. It was just so different. It was so crazy. Like this, yep, Y2K. Yep, listen to this.
That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet.
At the dawn of the new millennium, the online world was growing rapidly. The intellect of man and the advancements of technology combined bestowed upon the world the creation of the internet. By Al Gore. News of a new Star Wars movie was spreading.
Yeah.
The storyboard for The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring had been completed.
Fuck yeah.
Nerd culture was about to reach critical mass. And Bill Clinton did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Imagine
And
that.
so entered the massively multiplayer online role-playing game, or MMORPG for short. The creation of the first MMO can be traced all the way back to the 70s, depending on your definition and standards, as they would be text-based, though they had existed for decades.
Bro, straight up, my mom played those text-based games in the 70s. Like, real shit, she actually played those all the way back then.
It was only near the new millennium that they would attract a sizable player base.
I actually found her notebook of all of her notes that she had made. Maybe like a couple of years ago, I showed it to her, and she's like, "Yep, that's right." I'll have to show you guys sometime.
Although varying in implementation, they all shared the central idea of an online, persistent world with players from all over the globe. A genre unique in the sense that there is no planned end, no credits roll, nor thanks for playing. Game content would be added as long as there were players playing, and the journey would only end when the player decided that it was over.
It never
a concept
stops.
that was remarkably foreign to many at the time. In these early years, many would try to challenge breaking through the genre, and overall, it would contain a niche audience. Some were beginning to make a name for themselves though, such as Origin Systems leaped into the online persistent world with Ultima Online, an isometric fantasy
good back
game
then. It was
memorable
really good
for
back
PvP combat in particular. Mythic Entertainment, who would later develop Warhammer Online, took their shot with the Dark Age of Camelot, a third-person take on Arthurian lore mixed with Norse mythology and high fantasy. Star Wars would make their debut into the world of MMOs with the 2002 Star Wars Galaxies, an MMO with a more heavy focus on community and sandbox gameplay.
You know what's really kind of funny about it is it's almost like it is now, where every company is trying to go towards the metaverse, but back then they actually were, and Blizzard succeeded. Blizzard was the one whose metaverse effectively won out over everybody else.
And most prolific at the time was EverQuest in 1999, as Interactive and 99 Studios, decrowning the previously reigning champion, Ultima Online. Just 24 hours after launch, it would quickly become the most subscribed MMORPG at
I thought Ultima Online looked better personally. I like the aesthetics of Ultima Online more.
10,000 subscribers. Yeah, really. 10,000
God
was the
damn.
most subscribed MMORPG at the time. It would eventually peak at over 500,000 years after its launch.
Holy
but
shit,
as
I didn't know
history has
that.
shown, it would be a fraction of the potential that was hidden within the genre.
Wow.
A potential that had yet to be realized.
That's a lot.
The MMO was on the rise, and the time to strike was nigh, and in the background, a beast was stirring, silently observing the strengths, the weaknesses, The six
You have to understand, like, back then, Blizzard only made the best games. Like, you might not understand that now, right? But it's so different. Like, Blizzard was the From Software of the 90s and the 2000s.
Not enough rage.
Like, they brought out a game, and it's like World of Warcraft was as far ahead of its, like, other competitors as, like, Elden Ring is farther ahead of any other game. Like, it was just so far ahead, it just wasn't even, it just put every other game in the fucking dirt.
successes and the failures of the then relatively unexplored genre. Blizzard at this point already had established themselves as innovators with their Diablo, StarCraft, and Warcraft series, the latter being a real-time strategy game set in a fantasy world of orcs,
I played this shit all the time.
magic, and adventure. And having seen the success of other fantasy-based games such as EverQuest, the table was set. After halting development on an abandoned project, a small team of developers were left in.
That's Metzen right there. That right there is fucking Metzen.
Limbo, and were searching for inspiration on their next game. They had the IP, they had the funding, and most importantly, the timing.
The boys, yeah, all the boys.
September 2nd, 2001. Long before Blizzard was big enough to hold their own convention, they held a panel at London's European Computer Trade Show, and it was then that the public for the first time saw the world of Warcraft.
Yep. It just looks so much better than all the other old games. Like, it was just so far above, like, holy shit. Look at that.
They made it clear this was not the sequel to the popular RTS series at the time, but rather something completely different. Players would transition from controlling pre-made heroes and progressing through a campaign to creating their own heroes and making their own stories. The game would be multiplayer on a...
Well, they kind of had this actually in Warcraft 3. Do you guys remember that in the Frozen Throne? You had like that campaign for Rexxar, and like Rexxar was just by himself, and you would just like send him around on different missions and shit. And I remember whenever World of Warcraft came out, and I was like, well, what kind of game is this? And like Zach told me, he's like, yo, it was like, remember back like the Rexxar campaign in Warcraft 3? I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, but that's like the whole game. I'm like, oh, it's so badass. Like, that's what it was. Yeah, Founding of Durotar. I don't remember what it was called, but yeah, that was the that was the first foray into it that they made.
Massive skill, bringing together fans of not only the Warcraft series, but of MMOs as a whole. The reaction, however, was mixed. Some waited with eager anticipation, trying to imagine their beloved series making its leap into the massively multiplayer setting, and many were upset at the abrupt change of focus, preferring Blizzard to concentrate on what was...
I just want you guys to see this, just so you can know that there's nothing that has ever changed. Okay? It doesn't matter. Like, he knew he was 20 years ahead of his time. Yeah, it's always the way it's been.
On what was proven to work, instead of taking a gamble into unfettered territory. The idea of paying a monthly fee to continue playing was a hard pill to swallow at the time.
It was, bro. Like, I'm telling you, $15 a month, man. Like, $15 a month is like $25 or $30 a month nowadays. Like, 15 bucks, like, I would get allowance of like maybe 20 or 25. I don't remember exactly what it was. And like, it still is, but bro, like back then it was even more. Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, it was even more. Yeah, it's like $49. It's a lot of fucking money to play it, to play the game back then. It really was. Like, that's why I didn't. How do I report a GM?
Especially by Blizzard fans who had grown accustomed to the one-time purchase models set standard by the company. Work would continue on the project, however, and the very first interview would be claimed by the Computer Gaming World magazine. By this time, EverQuest was the clear reigning champion, but the genre as a whole had one fatal flaw, and that's the learning curve. XP loss, gear loss, and even permanent character death were commonplace in nearly every game of the genre. And
That's right, because fuck that. I don't want to be this guy, alright? Like, I want to be able to play the game and relax, you know? Yeah, you get your shit fucked up. And, like, this is what I said before, right? Remember I was bringing up how every game was trying to be the last big game? World of Warcraft tried to be the next big game. And that's why it was so successful. Is they did away with the shackles that the previous games gave the players.
Combined with a large time investment in playing, it cultivated a very niche and hardcore community, and the everyday casual player would quickly succumb to the intense difficulty and seek entertainment from other, more forgiving games. It was a genre with a focus on character progression, with death penalties centering around character regression and a steep learning curve to go along with it. However, this transitionary period would prove to be a key moment where players for the first time would leave single-player games that looked like this into this online sprawling world. They were incomparable to each other, and although it's funny to think now, it was an intimidating thing. The time investment was, and still is, incredibly high. You had to have...
Oh yeah, there were so many, because there were also all these news stories. Like, I remember I started playing the game in, like, 2006, and, like, my relatives were like, do you know, like, so you let him play World of Warcraft? Well, I have a friend at work, and her son started playing World of Warcraft, and next thing she knows, he's smoking the reefer. And my dad would be like, yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah, that's my son, you know? He'd have been totally fine with that, right? But just in general, he didn't give a fuck. He was like, whatever.
A computer, 15? You had to have a good enough graphics card to run it, you had to have internet, and you had to pay a subscription. The amount of hurdles standing between the average person and the game were already high, and combined with the unforgiving gameplay of the landmark titles representing the genre, it was just too much for the average person. But it was this person, this untapped market of new and casual players that Blizzard would set their sights on. World of Warcraft took a
like the same thing Final Fantasy did 10 years later.
Completely different style of approach. During a time when XP loss was the bare minimum penalty for dying, World of Warcraft made you simply run back to your corpse.
One of the great things here is that when you die, and death is an inevitability in all these games, it's really not that big of a deal. All other online RPGs make death a really bad thing because dying should be bad, right? Well, in World of Warcraft, pretty much all that happens is you sit out for a bit. You respawn back at a graveyard, and you run and get your corpse, and you respawn. You don't lose experience points. You don't lose your items or any of that stuff.
Forge your own
the next
path.
Level took years in other games. World of Warcraft, it took months for most players. And when systems were complicated and confusing, requiring external literature to understand, World of Warcraft systems were relatively straightforward, and when character stat and template choices were often permanent, World of Warcraft featured costly but reversible methods of character progression and...
Yeah, you have to remember, 50 gold respecs back in the culture of 2004 was an easy respec. That's like, oh, you can just go and do whatever you want. Yeah, that was an easy fucking respec, because you have to remember, like, all of the games, like, basically, like, culture around, like, Dungeons and Dragons, right, was influenced primarily by Tolkien, obviously, but, like, every bit of, like, fantasy gaming for, like, a very, very long time, and, like, you could argue still now, was derivative of the original Dungeons and Dragons. That's why you have dice rolls for critical hits, and you see that DNA in, like, every fucking fantasy game. And like, back in Dungeons & Dragons, it was harder to respec as well, especially in the earlier versions. That's my understanding.
Customization. In other games, you had areas designed for large groups of high-level players, referred to as raids, but they were commonly out in the open world, which resulted in having to compete against one another for kill credit. Due to this, there was a greater sense of urgency to complete the raid in its entirety in one sitting before any other guild had the chance to catch up and bring unwanted competition. Marathon
9-hour
sessions of guilds
raids.
setting up 24-hour shifts was a common strategy to maintain dominion of these raids, in many cases to the detriment of the health of the players. This Final Fantasy XI boss was engaged for 18 hours until players were forced to quit after they began to faint and vomit. Though this boss in particular...
But guys, he was at 10%. Just keep going. It's only 2 more hours. Yeah, come on. You're almost there. Remember that? Yeah, that's how serious this game used to be. Like, people back in the day were ridiculous at these games. It was nuts.
Was nerfed shortly after the incident. This was the state of the endgame for most MMOs in these early stages. However, World of Warcraft had been one of the first MMOs to standardize instance raids, where players and guilds could create their own unique raid instances, resetting on a weekly basis. And as for the raid bosses themselves, although today seen as archaic and simplistic, at the time they were quite advanced. In a genre...
Oh, it's like you look at this thing. What is this? What is this? The triangle dragon? The Lord of Geometry? Like, what the fuck does this... What the fuck does this do? You know what I mean? Like, this is the Lord of Geometry. Like, of course not. Like, what the fuck? And so, like, whenever WoW came out and, like, it had instances, it sounds really cool to have these outdoor raids until you have the outdoor raids. And then you realize how fucking annoying it is. That being said, we did have a lot of fun in Classic WoW doing the world bosses. It was fun. Having a little bit of it is okay. I hope they have that in Ashes of Creation.
Where raid bosses boiled down to having a unique name with a higher health pool and increased damage. World of Warcraft would add unique, and often at the time, complex mechanics that required teamwork and thought to overcome, which in turn would become one of the game's major selling points. The worlds had NPCs, but were commonly static, whereas the world of Azeroth felt more alive with dynamic NPCs going about their daily lives. Simply put, what it didn't invent, it improved.
And that's the thing, is like, yeah, back then there were just characters that just sat around. Like, so many of the things that you take for granted now, like, for example, like in New World, there's no loading screens whenever you're running around in New World. World of Warcraft was the first MMO, really, or first big MMO I know, to just not really have loading screens. You just go from one zone to another zone. That, just like that simplistic thing that, like, everybody takes for granted now was gigantic back then. It was huge.
We're in a constant state of almost theirs, and World of Warcraft was the first one to bridge that gap and bring it to a more mainstream audience, and it reaped the rewards because of that. The game would continue development throughout the years, with teasers being released in the form of magazine interviews and trailers, keeping the curious onlooker abreast on its direction. And after a long alpha and beta testing period, the moment of truth came on November 23rd, 2004.
Yep. Oh man, guys, I can't believe that these new games can't keep these servers up. It wasn't like this back in the day. I tell you something. Back in the day, they used to run a whole lot better. Yeah. Ain't shit changed. Yeah, it was worse. Because back then,
appealing to the casual gamer worked well.
Back then, the developers didn't care. Like, now they hire a PR person or a community manager to pretend like they care about you. Back then, the developers were like, fuck. Really messed this one up, huh? Oh, we'll fix it eventually. I'm gonna go to lunch. Yeah, like, they didn't even give a fuck.
Too well. Blizzard in no way was prepared for the frenzy of players eager to get into the world. Disconnects, lag, and rollbacks would persist heavily for the opening months, and still consistently through the next couple of years. Forums daily would be filled with outrage, demands for a refund, and even threats of lawsuits. The miraculous thing about it, though, is that it didn't even seem to slow its growth. The launch today is looked at as disastrous, and yet still...
Nobody cares about a bad launch. Literally nobody gives a shit. They will come back and play the game later on if it's good. That's why I tell people it's like every launch is going to be shit. Why is it going to be shit? Because it doesn't really matter.
It's too far.
Look at this, RAM or video card? Yes, this was a real question back in the day. This was back in the Stone Ages. Like, people had to connect. There was like an aqueduct with water, and you had to connect that to the stone cutting device, and then the stone cutting device's kinetic energy would power the hamster wheel that would cause the computer to turn on. And that's what it was.
People came back again and again. How can a game that's playable maybe 50% of the time hold such a demand? Well, it's because it was that good.
It was good.
Years of development had paid off as World of Warcraft quickly became a hit, almost immediately dwarfing all competition at the time
Beat
and
their
robbing
ass.
them of their player bases. It was the vampire of the MMO industry at its release, and it would suck the life force out of every single previously mentioned staple of the genre.
But there was one unfortunate thing. The unfortunate thing was it launched right when WoW launched.
Yeah.
So WoW brought the whole industry down, not just us. Every online game out there went down as soon as WoW went out. WoW was like a huge succubus of players went over there and drove into WoW.
Yep.
And it drove all our numbers down.
60 levels of progression and a world of challenges awaited the eager player base, and there would be many landmark moments just waiting to be claimed. Players rushed to the max level, and the title of the world first level 60 went to a player named Zenith, a troll rogue on the Stormreaver server
I didn't even know that.
December 3rd, 2004, a little less than 2 weeks after release. By
Wow.
today's standards, incredibly slow, but back then, a no-life nerd, as onlookers weren't shy of expressing.
Yep.
On January 30th, 2005, the game would see its first raid cleared with the death of Anixia, taken down by the Guild Ruined on the Proudmoore server, and many players for the first time got to see the famed epic quality items that she hoarded.
Dead. Oh my god.
Blizzard would spend the following years perfecting their craft. As their subscriber base increased, so too did their budget, and more servers would quickly be added to support the booming player base. New patches would not only release new raid tiers, but also systems, items, and much more. And
It was a
in May
lot of
the
shit.
same year, the subscriber base would see its biggest surge for the next decade.
It was fucking insane, man.
Okay, guys, these eggs have given us a lot of trouble in the past. Does anybody need anything off this guy?
One of the earliest videos to go viral in the world of Warcraft was created by the guild Pals for Life.
Yep.
The guild was strategizing on how to clear out a particularly tricky room in the upper Blackrock Spire raid.
I think it's a pretty good plan. We should be able to pull it off this time. What do you think, Abdul? Can you give me a number crunch real quick?
Yeah, give me a sec. I'm coming up with 32.33, repeating, of course.
People still use that.
Survival.
They still use that
That's
meme.
a lot better than we usually do.
Alright,
thumbs up. Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Oh my god, he just ran in.
Yep.
Save him. Oh, geez, stick it clean.
Oh, Jesus. Let's go, let's go.
Dude,
And
I
in the
remember
midst of
having
the
this video on my
conversation,
computer.
A group member, Leroy, charges in prematurely with reckless abandon, causing the death of the entire
Stick
group.
to the plan.
I can't move. Am I lagging, guys? I can't move. What the hell? I can't aim. Oh my god. The eggs keep taking that. More respawning. I don't think you can cast with that shit. Oh my god. Take it off. I got it. Take it off.
I can't move.
Oh
Yep.
my god.
It was bad.
God damn it, Leroy.
At least I got chicken.
The video was later revealed to be staged, but nonetheless, it caught on like wildfire, and
It
was
did.
shared across multiple websites and forums, making it one of the first videos for World of Warcraft to gain viral popularity. Onlookers were intrigued.
Man.
Word of mouth proved to be a prolific
It sounded so scripted. No, but like what you don't understand is like back then, people didn't think if something was scripted or not. Like it just wasn't even in their mind. It was just like, this is a funny video. Wow, this is funny. This guy's so dumb. You know what I mean? Like it just wasn't even, it wasn't even on their radar.
advertising vehicle for the game. It's hard to say today just how many people watched the video, as some of the uploads have been lost.
Millions
the
and
original upload
millions
on
and
Warcraft
millions of
movies
people.
today sits at nearly 19 million views, and the original YouTube mirror reached at least 46 million before
Holy
it was taken
shit,
down.
that's a lot.
And surviving mirrors today sit at a total combined count of around 24 million.
88
Regardless,
million
it's by
views.
far the most viewed Warcraft-related video, even to this day.
Oh
after
my
15
God.
years later. It was so popular, in fact, that it was later featured as a question in the trivia show Jeopardy, just a few months later in November.
Yep.
This role-playing game, out in 2004, returns to the world of Azeroth, where heroes like Leroy Jenkins do battle. And that would be the world of Warcraft.
Pathetic.
Yep.
The Leroy craze wasn't the only phenomenon to spawn from the game, though. September of 2000.
It's like, I'm trying to think of like what would be the equivalent of Leroy Jenkins now. Like, what's a meme that was on the same level as Leroy Jenkins? Gangnam Style? Let me solo her? No, that's kind of like, I don't know. Harambe? Yeah. Yeah, it was, yes. I think that's a great example. Harambe, it was as prevalent as Harambe. Exactly, and isn't that scary? It was as prevalent as Harambe.
5 saw the release of the Zul'Gurub raid, the final encounter of which was a boss named Hakar.
Oh, I
he
know
had
that
an
guy.
ability called Corrupted
He's an
Blood,
asshole.
which dealt some damage to a player, and if they were to stand too close to another, it would spread to that person. In a contained environment, it's just another raid mechanic. That is, until one player, intentionally or otherwise, managed to create a virtual pandemic that spread across every single server. The mechanic had one fatal flaw. By getting a pet companion afflicted with the disease and then dismissing it, it would persist when the pet is summoned once more. This person did just that, but in a crowded area, and spread the affliction to every nearby player and NPC, and as long as they were living hosts, there was no escape.
I love how this is exactly what happened with COVID. Like, this is exactly what happened. Is like they never really got rid of it. Like, because it wasn't like, oh, the people would just like, they would, you know, they would stay by themselves. Nope, they just run around and, you know, it just kept happening.
Entire cities became infected
It was
by
real.
the plague. Word quickly spread, and other players intentionally started spreading the disease.
Yep, just like the people
Ironforge,
licking things in
Stormwind,
Walmart.
Orgrimmar. Every major capital city was a death hub and was uninhabitable by lower-level players.
Yep.
The spread would continue to go on for days until Blizzard eventually hotfixed the disease, but the resulting chaos remains to this day to be one of the most memorable moments in the game's history, and has even been used in real-world research of the spread and reaction of contagious diseases.
It's real easy to be an asshole behind the keyboard and get away with it. Shows just how well shit clings to the asshole. Example, Achira and his band of dingleberries. You are added to the to-be camped list. Congratulations, you have stooped lower than any other guild in MMO history. That silly fool has no idea what is to come.
Though there are many memorable landmark moments in the game's history, some are more controversial than others.
There sure were.
In 2006, on the Illidan server, a player by the name of Phajin passed away suddenly from a stroke.
Yep.
And in memoriam of one of her favorite activities, fishing, her guild had decided to host an in-game funeral service to pay one final tribute to her. There were 2 problems, though. It was publicly advertised on the realm forums,
And it was on a PvP
Illidan
server.
was a PvP server,
Yep.
where players of the opposite faction could freely attack one another. A guild, Serenity Now, saw the thread, and they felt that they would join in to pay tribute, but in a very different way. Having snuck through a nearby tunnel leading into the zone, the entire raid team prepared to crash the funeral. As players lined up to pay tribute to their friend, the raid quickly closed in on the location,
Nice
And to
day
make
for a
matters
funeral.
worse,
Yep.
in an effort to roleplay, many of the attendees had unequipped their armor and weapons,
Of
leaving them
course.
defenseless against the surprise onslaught.
Do you remember the fucking video where, like, as soon as that happened, they started playing the Scatman? Like, the second this... Like, whenever they opened, I heard it in my mind, you know? Yeah, exactly.
The funeral was quickly and easily dispatched. Serenity
I bet
now
it
would become
was.
infamous on their server, and the crash still stands today as one of the most controversial in-game events in its entire history.
It sure
All of
was.
these moments serve a crucial role in the telling of the history of the game, and they would serve as a reminder of the reasons why it became such a success. It's due not only to its own merits, but perhaps even more drastically by the community that the world of Azeroth was comprised of.
Yeah, absolutely.
This world, however, was about to change.
How many of you have played World of Warcraft?
There he is, Mike Morhaime.
Due to the success of World of Warcraft, Blizzard for the first time held their own event, a convention centered solely around Blizzard games
Holy
named
shit.
BlizzCon. This was, and remains to be, a unique aspect of the developer to hold a personalized
Maybe not
convention
remains.
tailored to their products. A form of celebration of not only the games that they're creating, but also the already massive community that they've built. The strong focus on the community would be something that Blizzard would become known for, and it created a loyalty of sorts from the players.
It was, like, you were, like, there were people that, like, for example, whenever Diablo 3 came out, everybody that played WoW, a lot of my friends, we all just went over and played Diablo 3. It's a Blizzard game, right? Whenever Overwatch came out, we all just went over and we played Overwatch. Why? I mean, it's a Blizzard game. Of course we're going to play it. StarCraft 2 comes out, yeah, we're going to play a Blizzard game. Yeah, absolutely. And, like, you have to think about how fucking ridiculous it was that this company was so popular and so well-liked that they could have set up, and this is, like, also, by the way, like, nowadays we have other companies that do things like this. We have, like, you know, FanFest for Final Fantasy. We have the Witcher convention that they did recently too. But back then, like, this was unheard of. This company was so popular, this was so big, that people would travel all around the world and all around the country to come together and celebrate how much they love the games. It was nuts, man. QuakeCon? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, ExileCon? Yeah, there's a lot of them. BlizzCon was one of the originals.
It felt like it was more than a game. It was a
SawCon?
community of
What's
people
SawCon?
sharing their combined love and passion for the worlds that they created.
You guys take care of us, man. You guys really take care of us.
Diablo,
Man.
StarCraft, Warcraft. Fans from around the world would plan vacations around it.
Yep.
Longtime friends and guildmates would meet
I
each
was
other
there.
in person for the first time, and BlizzCon as a whole would become a very crucial part of Blizzard's identity from this point forward.
Oh, it
And
sure
in
was.
The very first convention, held in October of 2005, a bombshell announcement was unveiled.
Crusade,
The
right?
world of Warcraft is about to get bigger with the release of its first expansion, the Burning Crusade.
You are not prepared.
That shit was crazy. It's like, you have to imagine, like, how fucking, like, how much you must have felt like you were just, like, you were there, you were in it, right? Because, like, this game is, like, the biggest pop culture phenomenon of, like, all time. Like, this is so huge. And then, like, you go to fucking the convention, and then, like, fucking Burning Crusade gets announced. And it's just like, it won't stop. We just can't stop winning, you know? It was nuts, man.
The expansion boasted what players had come to expect from the world of Warcraft and more. They would step into the world of the Outland and progress through 10 more character levels, new zones, talents, dungeons, spells, raids,
Yeah.
races, a profession, a new PvP system, and much more. It would add on to and improve in just about every aspect of the game.
It did.
But it's still 2005, and there's a lot of game left to conquer before players began worrying about their foray into the Outland. There were dragons to kill and DKP to acquire.
DKP, Dragon
All
Kill
groups
Points.
go to left.
Even groups
Oh,
got
God.
right. That means
Oh,
1,
God.
3, 5, 7 left, 2, 4, 6, 8 right.
Oh, God.
In the game, you had casual, hardcore, and everything in between, and there were some who took it even further beyond.
No reason to lose the main tank, and I am blaming you, because I blame my son. I can fucking do it. Everyone can do it. Do it right. This is bullshit.
Videos of more.
He's not wrong. You understand? They're wiping on Magmadar. Like, he's actually right. Like, yeah, what do you mean, like, you can't do it? It's Magmadar. Get up and fucking figure it out.
Serious or angry nature
Get out of the
would
fire,
start to spring
idiot.
up at this point. Those of raid leaders chewing out members for failing and properly performing the mechanics of a boss fight.
Yep.
Well,
Crush him was fair than turret.
Who the fuck was that? Crush him! What the fuck? Whelps! Left side! Even side! Many whelps! Now handle it! Fuck!
The most prolific of which being
Just like the boss. Fuck!
No.
Oh my god, man. It was just so good. And like these people, by the way, these people weren't like this wasn't like a put on. Like they did this for free. Like this was actually how they acted. This is actually how they talk and everything.
dives, the raid leader of the guild, Wipe Club. Anixia, at this point, had been slain by numerous guilds,
Yep.
and after some
Still happens.
unsuccessful
Oh, yeah.
attempts, one of the members decided to record what would later become one of the biggest meltdowns in history, the Anixia wipe animation.
You have to think that like that meme is still used. Like people still use 50 DKP minus, and like that has become a gaming meme in general, an internet meme. Period. It is a timeless meme.
What the fuck was that shit?
Much like Leroy, the animation would quickly become popular.
Yep.
And it highlighted the frustrating side of
There
coordinating
are people that
40
use that,
people
don't even know
and
what it
clearing
means.
the challenging raids.
Don't play like you're just fucking going through the motions. You'll get your goddamn loot eventually. Oh, damn it!
Yep.
Fucking bullshit!
True,
Yeah,
and,
I know,
and
right?
you know what that was, right? That's like the fucking, you know, the little fucking gray mics on a stand with like the little circular platform that you buy at Circuit City for $19.99. He just knocked that shit over right there. Yep, I have one. Yep, I had the headset, so I was good.
Well, we're all gonna get attacked because we have no warlock here. Nice job, you fucking idiot!
True.
Hey, shut the fuck up! You stupid fuck!
Is that Ragnaros?
These videos would paint players in a much less flattering light,
Fuck
as
yeah,
many
dude.
people would become so obsessed that they would shirk real-life responsibilities
Yep.
and fall out of contact with friends, quit work or school,
Hell yeah.
and in the most extreme cases cause harm to themselves
Damn.
or others. In Korea of June of 2005, the 4-month-old child of a couple would suffocate when left unsupervised for several hours as the parents were playing World of Warcraft in an internet.
See, like, I hate whenever these articles like this comes out, like it's actually the game's fault.
Greetings, traveler.
Like, this is the game's fault that this happened. Not exactly.
Unsupervised
it's
for
so
several hours
disingenuous.
as the parents were playing World of Warcraft in an internet cafe. The phrase World of Warcrack was coined,
Yep.
shedding light on the dark side of video game addiction,
Fuck yeah,
particularly that of MMOs and the consequences of obsession. Something that the media was not shy of reporting,
Oh,
as
yeah.
World of Warcraft, due to its popularity, would find itself at the center of this war against video game addiction.
Hell
games.
yeah.
He's playing them an incredible 16 hours a day. His mother says his personality has changed and that he's become moody and violent.
Bro, like, imagine playing 16 hours a day, you don't even have T1. Bro, like, I mean, for real, like, how do you not have T1 at 16 hours a day? Like, Jesus, man, like, you gotta up your numbers up, man. Like, what are you doing?
His addiction is tearing the family apart.
To many, it was more than a game.
Oh, we
it
watched
was a
this one.
virtual life with the graphical interface. It attracted people from all walks of life and
Yep.
blended them together in the chaos of this online world. News of the Burning Crusade remained to be scarce, as it was still under NDA in the Friends and Family Alpha. A blog post teasing new features would be shared scarcely, but otherwise, it was still largely a mystery outside of what was shared at the 2005 BlizzCon. The excitement was palpable.
This was the
and
original
players
Dark
from
Portal.
all over the world
That's what it
couldn't
used
wait
to
to
look
get
like
into the Outland.
before the
beta test for the
Burning
expansion
Crusade.
started not too long after, as players got to discover and explore its features, and shortly after, World of Warcraft would become the focus of the cartoon series South Park, with their Make Love, Not Warcraft episode.
I remember I watched this episode with my dad
South
at his
Park,
house
with
whenever
their
it
Make
came out.
Love,
We
Not
watched it
Warcraft.
on television. Because we would watch South Park every time it would come out, right? And so like, we just watched this one. Yeah, I remember this so well. It was so fucking good. I remember I put a link to this on my MySpace page back whenever it came out.
The episode detailed the boys' fight against a hacker antagonist.
It's a good
and
time.
their struggle with video game addiction.
Oh, that's a big boy, isn't he?
So on release, it was an instant success. Many years later, series co-creator
Yep.
Trey Parker detailed his worries with the episode, revealing that he even tried to get it pulled as he feared that it simply wasn't funny. But
And it was it was the best one of all time. It got voted best one of all time. And also, I remember what I loved about it the most is that all of the everything that they were using in the game were actually like real items. It wasn't just like some bullshit. They actually used real items. Besides Sword of a Thousand Crews, which was Hungry and Cold. Besides that, it was all the actual items.
as history has shown, the episode would become an
minus the sword.
instant success. And despite the fact that the series at this point now has over 300 episodes, it remains to be one of their most popular to this day.
Yep.
Looks like you're about to get pwned.
Remember Pwned? Perfectly Owned? Holy shit, man. That's some fucking 2004 energy. Oh my god. Yep.
January 16th finally came,
Yep.
and it marked the
Midnight
beginning
releases,
of a new
boys.
era, the official end of vanilla World of Warcraft. People lined up outside of stores and tents in the freezing cold, launch parties were held, and the community was stronger than ever and pulled together with their one shared trait, their fear of women. Their collective...
Both. Yes, exactly. No, it was that was what it was. Like, I remember my mom and I, we went there at the midnight release from Burning Crusade because we pre-ordered the game. So back then, pre-ordering a game, the reason why you would pre-order was so the like GameStop or EB Games or Best Buy or wherever you were getting it from knew how many copies to stock. Because, you know, they'd have, it was basically like you could go there whenever the game was out and you could be, like, guaranteed that you would get your game if you had a pre-order. So my mom and I, we pre-ordered the game, and I remember we waited, it was at fucking Steak and Shake, and we waited there, and, like, we drove by the fucking, what was it? The GameStop. And then we were just talking about, wow, we were talking about going to the Dark Portal because we were both 60 by then, right? And then we look over and it's like 11:45 and there's like a fucking million people there. And so we rush over and I got my copy of Burning Crusade with my mom the night of BC release, man. And it was the same day that I don't have it up right now because I think it's in the wash. It's the night that I got her to buy me that shirt, the Burning Crusade shirt, man. Yeah. I was like, you know what? Can you buy me this shirt too? She's like, yep. I go home, I play that shit all night. I wake up the next day, I swear to God, was a snow day. I swear to fucking God, the next day was a snow day. I stayed home, played the game all day.
of love for the game. At this point, it had amassed roughly 8 million subscribers by the expansion's release, never once reporting a loss, and holding on to the lion's share of the market. In the background stirred some serious competition, however. Mythic Entertainment, who developed the Dark Age of Camelot, sought to compete against Blizzard with an MMORPG adaptation of the renowned Warhammer series. Due to its similar fantasy setting, holding orcs, magic, elves, and wizards, many thought it to be the direct competitor to World of Warcraft, and deemed it to be one of the first of many would-be WoW killers during the time. Another such game was The Age of Conan, The Hyborian Adventures, developed by Funcom, who was mostly known in the MMO community for Anarchy Online in 2001. Its selling points would be impeccable graphics at the time, and a new and fresh combat system
really
in a
good back
dark
then.
and visceral world,
That's
featuring the
crazy
fatality
good.
mechanic, where players could execute each other in brutal fashion, often described as the Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
of MMORPGs. And The Lord of the Rings Online by Turbine was also in development, an MMO of one of the most celebrated franchises in nerd culture history, certainly posed as a serious threat to Blizzard at the time. Though these contenders would be far off from release, the competition was beginning to get fierce.
Well, it really wasn't, because all of these games weren't very good. Like, WoW just played so much better than these other games. Like, it just really wasn't even a competition. It was so far ahead.
To stave them off, the Burning Crusade had to be as exceptional as its predecessor. Months and months of doomsaying was put to the test. Did the Burning Crusade kill the World of Warcraft? Of course, the answer is no. The expansion was a major success, and the subscription base rose even more rapidly as players explored the dangerous reaches of the Outland. The classes evolved, and the gap between them was lessened, while still retaining the features that made them special. The raids were more challenging, the bosses more complex, and offering more to conquer to the ever-growing subscriber base.
Burning Crusade was basically just a better version of the game. Like, there were some things that vanilla was better with. Like, I think world building in vanilla was better, and there were some other advantages of vanilla WoW. But Burning Crusade, for pretty much all end-game activities, was just an improvement on the game.
And the raiding scene itself proved to be even more difficult for players than what they had encountered in the base game, with many lists today naming a plethora of Burning Crusade bosses
It's one of the best bosses
as the
of all
hardest in
time.
the game's history, even over 14 years later, with some of them going unkilled by 99% of the player base until Blizzard intervened themselves to make them easier.
And
The
even then, it
expansion
was
today
still hard.
is remembered for having an extensive process for gaining entry to the raids
The
called
attunements,
Attunement. A large series of story-based quests served as an
We did
alternate
these.
form of character progression, and players would rarely find themselves with nothing to do. The PvP system had evolved to be more competitive with the new arena mode, where players create custom teams and battle in small skill matches to the death, setting the stage for future competitive events in Blizzard's attempt to gain a foothold into the growing esports scene. The Alliance for the first time got to experience a new class to them, the Shaman, and for the Horde, the Paladin, both with 2 new races added to the game, the Draenei and the Blood Elf. 5-man dungeons rose back to the forefront with the advent of the more challenging heroic difficulty. The expansion was packed with features and upgrades in its design.
It was
stands as one of
insane.
Blizzard's most critically acclaimed releases even to this day. The Lord of the Rings also saw its release in 2007 to serve as competition for World of Warcraft, and although receiving
This
favorable
was such dog shit. Like, I mean, really, it was just such absolute fucking dog shit compared to WoW. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, WoW was just so far above it in terms of, like, combat and playability. It was just not even remotely close. Like, it was just, yeah, I don't care. Like, it looked just... The thing is, like, every other game looked like it came from 1999. That was the way I feel. Like, yeah, it looked like it came from 1999. And, like, WoW was the first game that, like, really looked like next gen at the time.
reviews at the time, it couldn't compare to the size and scope of WoW, selling under 200,000 copies in the first months of release, and dwindling shortly thereafter. The game does still run today, supported by a niche community, and is hovering around 40,000 active players at the time of this video.
Better than New World.
The Burning Crusade pressed on, undaunted, and in the following BlizzCon in August, the next expansion, The Wrath of the Lich King, was announced.
So, he missed something here. Wrath of the Lich King was not announced, it was leaked. And the guy, whenever he announced Wrath of the Lich King, said, for anybody who already knows what this is, your account is getting banned. Like, they straight up made a joke about it, and then they announced Wrath of the Lich King.
Players were teased of the land of Northrend, where they had once visited in the events of Warcraft 3.
Well, you have to remember, like in Warcraft 3, the end of Warcraft 3 was like Arthas beating Illidan. So like in the context of WoW, we just beat Illidan. Well, the next guy is the Lich King, right? Like that's the next thing. It's got to be the next thing, right? And so like the Lich King was seen as like the last boss of WoW. Like, yeah, you had things like Sargeras, Deathwing, like Deathwing's in Warcraft 2, but like really it was fucking the Lich King, right? And like, so whenever this shit happened, it was like, holy fuck, it's like, we really out here, boys. This is it.
Here, where they would face off against Arthas Menethil as the Lich King,